Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session for December 2nd, 2013. For those of you in attendance, I would ask that if you have a mobile device, please put it on silent or vibrate so that it doesn't go off during the meeting. Commissioners, the first thing that we have before us is approval of the work session agenda. There are a few changes to the agenda. So this time I'd accept a motion that the work session agenda be approved with the changes.
So moved.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. First items up are discussion items that would not have action for us at our next meeting. And we'll start with Lynn Whitkey. And Kelly, you're going to come up? Well, thank you both for being here to give us a QSCB update.
And I'll let Dave talk to you about the project status.
Sure. We've got actually 5 that are shown in the active status. Central Cabarrus High School, that is substantially complete. It's in the legal process for the final pay application. We do anticipate that that's going to happen in the next couple weeks. Northwest Cabarrus High School, it's the gym addition that's been substantially complete. We're already doing some change order work. Thanks to the sales tax refund work, we were able to work on parking lots that's associated with the work. That work is underway. Mount Pleasant High School boiler replacement, that bid scope is complete, substantially complete. We're pursuing some controls change order work. And again, that's trying to finish out those projects. The Concord High School weight room addition, that too is substantially complete. We are putting in a floor system that was value engineered out of that project, but that should be complete in 2 weeks. And Jane Freeze Middle School, partial roof replacement, that work is underway. We do anticipate that work's going to be completing in the next couple weeks. And that's it for the active projects.
Commissioners, any questions about the projects at this time? I know you have another item under number 4.
I know we had probably mentioned this before, but just as a reminder to myself, when did these projects have to be completed for the QSCB?
April 1st, 2014.
April 1st, okay. And that's work, payment made?
Yes, everything.
Completely finished, okay.
And we are down to just trying to spend the last pennies on every project.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Chairman Poole, are we going to have them back for item number 4?
Yeah, they're going to bring that back to us. I didn't know if you had any questions about the other projects that are still ongoing. So, okay. Thank you. We'll do a couple more items and then we'll get you to come back up. Next, we have presentation regarding the 50th anniversary Vietnam War commemoration. John Stanley.
Don't turn off and don't touch. Thank you very much.
If you will, please introduce everybody that's with you.
I'm John Stanley. I'm with me. This is Robert McLeod and Lou Marciano. I hope I pronounced it right. First of all, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity, and having been in your last open meeting, it's giving an interesting perspective of what you people actually do and get involved with. And it's you probably should have 10 more board members just to do the workload. It's hard not to leave, and forget something. When we last met that week, especially with the youth in the audience, it was also the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. And there's a line in there that these dead should not have died in vain. Most of you here were too young to remember that convoluted time between 62 and 75, or to really appreciate it. You had Woodstock on one side and Khe Sanh on the other side of the world. And as the Vietnam soldier, or era soldier, talks about himself, It's that we went in alone and came home alone. And this is very personal to me. I spent my last 10 months in casualty notification, which is right up front. And there are worse jobs than that. I have a friend of mine, Joe, who is was in the mortuary over in Saigon. There are worse jobs than that. And I just, anyway, when we came home, people like to talk about how we were berated as we came home. But that was one small part of it. Most of us were just simply ignored. And I talked to John Galena, the founder of the Purple Heart Homes. The first time I met him was a couple of years ago, and he said, "I don't understand why I'll be talking to you, and they'll push you out of the way to shake my hand." Well, right now we're going under a situation where Congress in 2008, this is a national program, in 2008, gave permission to the Department of Defense and the Secretary of Defense to commemorate the Vietnam War. It's not a celebration. The uncommon valor of the average soldier is necessary for this country. Without the average soldier, there would be no General Washington, there would be no Andrew Jackson, there would be no Lee or Grant, Pershing, Patton, and there would be no country. So here we are trying to commemorate the 50th anniversary, so what we've done is we started out as getting together with the American Legion, the DAV, the Marine Corps League, to put together locally the commemoration of the Vietnam War. There's a lot of things going on. This is the worst secret in North Carolina. North Carolina has the 4th largest or the 3rd largest per capita veterans population, and nobody seems to know about it. However, Concord is the first municipality in North Carolina to become a commemorative partner. When we first started discussing this amongst ourselves, we were going to be the Vietnam Veterans Coalition, but we wanted to be inclusive to all veterans. I have a special feeling for the Korean War veteran because they're sort of lost out there also. And some of our board members now, it starts in 2015, I think probably have a 60 to 40 chance that they won't make it to 2015. We all know that there's 58,000 men who died, men and women who died, and women who died over in Vietnam. But we don't talk too much about the 500,000 more who died since they came home from Vietnam. So we were talking about various programs that we could get. Bob here was involved in putting down the memorial down in Charlotte. And that seemed to be cost prohibitive. So we look around and we have a tendency to have the same idea at different times together. And we get back and we realize that you have, generically named parks, like the North Cabarrus Park. And it was just a thought to have that to be the most efficient way to bring the county and the towns of Cabarrus County into the fold. So that was the thing. I have a couple of handouts here I'll leave with you to review what the Commemorative Partner Program is. It's a win-win situation. You get regional, statewide, and national recognition. When talking to Tim Tereski, he says one of the problems with the Vietnam veteran is we remain in the shadows. And whenever I talk to one of those shadow veterans, they say, when I came home, I went to seek comradeship amongst the established veteran organizations. And here in Kannapolis that happened, in Rowan County, Iredell County, where they were told that they were not wanted. We did not want your kind here. And that's almost overwhelming. And it happened across the country. So here's an opportunity for all of us. It's a win-win situation. It's a recognition situation. The idea of the coalition is so that, as I have been, my new favorite term is herding cats. We can dovetail events and all benefit from it. So I'll leave you with that thought. And there was another quote this morning on one of the news shows from the book, "Thank You for Your Service." And by the way, the first time I heard that was about 4 years ago, 40-some odd years after I got out of the service. It said, over time, the war came to mean less and less until it meant nothing at all. And meanwhile, the other soldiers came to mean more and more until they came to mean everything. Please consider this. I said, I'm looking at, the North Cabarrus Park down by Orphanage Road. Wouldn't it be great to have the commemorative flag over there and to commemorate it on November 13th of next year, and November 13th being the day that the wall up in Washington had its commemoration. So I'll leave you with that note. And if anybody wants to look it up, it's www.vietnamwar50th.com. And it's a fascinating website. And I said, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the work that you people are doing here. So best of luck to all of us. Thank you.
If I may, as I'm presuming to be one of the veterans that helps lead Cabarrus County in its many endeavors. First, as the founding commander of the American Legion Post in Harrisburg 523, my wife Janice, whom several of you have met, next year will assume the responsibilities of president of the North Carolina American Legion Auxiliary for the state. I am the founder of the Metroline Vietnam Veterans Association and was part of the Committee of 50 to fund the wall in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. I've been active in this for a long, long time. This is my swan song. This is the end of my push for whom we are as Vietnam veterans and soldiers. I'm now running across my father's brothers, or to put it this way, when my father was my age, when his World War II buddies were saying, I'm here. I'm here now. I'll be 66. We're the elders welcoming home our youngsters today. So what our goal overall is to educate our youngsters about what we had accomplished during the very difficult times of the 60s, during the very difficult days of helping ourselves because of the lack of help that was not there, through the VA, through local government, through whatever, it was not there. We know that without the big complaint. Now I run across my brothers, and our goal is to help our brothers. And one way we can do this is to have our home county be the first to be recognized in the state of North Carolina to be a commemorative partner. You don't get much. You get a flag, you get a few pins to pass around, but you are a partner. You do and will receive national recognition from that. And that says to my brothers, my Vietnam friends, welcome home and thanks. There's a lot of us out there, a lot of us who are hurting still. I put the hours in, as he does, and would love our county commissioners to first recognize this 50th. And next time around, we'll have pins for you all. Thanks for listening. We hope that you can hear our plea.
Commissioners, there is a couple slides in our agenda PowerPoint. This is the cover sheet, which I know you guys have all seen. The website's there. It has some background so that a lot of people go and pull up our agenda on the website, so that I want to make sure that they'll notice that item and pull it up. And you've got background there, congressional objectives. You've got your mission statement, and it talks about preparation towards the event, the 50th anniversary events, and there are a lot of things there for us to see. I'm sure you guys have all read it. I would encourage everybody else to kind of look on our website so they can pull that up and they can see that. You've got statistics also, so you're about right where you are. My brother-in-law served, and a number of my cousins did. So I was young, but I graduated from high school shortly thereafter. But I agree with you. I was not personally of the age to be involved. And a very, very good friend of mine served in the Red Cross in Vietnam.
Well, we got this through Joseph Galloway's wife, who's here in Concord. She helps run the Cabarrus Free Clinic. She served as a public health servant over there during the Tet Offensive. She spent 3 years over there. Joe himself is the only civilian to receive the Bronze Star with Valor, and he's the author of We Were Soldiers Once and Young. And,
He's the only civilian
civilian
to ever receive the Bronze Star with Valor under combat conditions. The only civilian ever.
In that slide presentation, it shows some of the statistics. It shows Bob here is in the Coast Guard, or Robin, as it would like to be called, is in the Coast Guard. They show 7 deaths in the Coast Guard. He was the XO on that ship. So he really was. This is a very personal thing. You know, I have a friend who got drafted 6 weeks before I did, and we've been best buddies for 50 years now. And I was up in Washington about 4 years ago, and I said, and he moved, and he was living in Maryland about 2 hours away. And I said, come on, Dick, before we're too old, let's go to the wall. And he said, I can't do it. He said, I can't do it. He said, I still get calls from the children of the men that I served with because I was the last person to see their father alive. I'll leave you this. There's a little bit more information.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We can get other copies of this, by the way.
Okay, and Wanda Strong is back over here. There is a process, a naming process, so she's going to get you that information.
Okay. Thank
so
you very
that
much.
We can go towards that, but she'll be the point person for us to handle that part of it, okay?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay.
Mr. Cook, it's so nice to see you stopped your impression of Porgy and Bess with your little wheel. Had to get you. Paul?
Does any other commissioner have anything that you want to add at this time? There is a process in place for a naming process, and Londa's aware of it, and Londa's going to get in touch with them and go through those steps. Okay. Next up, we're very happy to welcome Donna Carpenter and Michael Bonofsky. And I think he just wanted to slide in.
He's here for the pretty part.
That's right. Cabarrus County Tourism Authority to present their marketing plan. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. We realized after we kind of give you our budget that you approve, that's kind of a path and is what we use for making a marketing plan and putting the marketing plan together. But we realized we had failed to bring you the actual printed copy of the marketing plan. So that's what you have in front of you at your places. Everyone should have gotten one. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but always want to remind everyone the importance of tourism to this county and this community. And domestic visitors to and within Cabarrus County spent in excess of $362 million in 2012 here in Cabarrus County, which is an increase of 6.73% from 2011. Cabarrus County ranks 12th in travel impact among North Carolina's 100 counties. We employ 3,940 people in the tourism industry here in Cabarrus. And payroll generated by the industry was $77.27 million. And looking back over the past year, hotel revenue collections are up 5.63% to our revenue budget in the first 4 months of this year. So looking good. Numbers are continuing to rise. On a sales level, we have a goal of 96,000 room nights of opportunity that we provide to our hotel partners, and we're on pace to exceed, not only just meet, but to exceed that number by the end of our fiscal year. It's one of those things where a lot of people don't realize how things happen. And an example I'd like to use that was a huge success for our community was Tough Mudder. I don't know if any of you all were able to go out to the Foyle Farm, but Tough Mudder brought in 10,000 runners to participate out at the Foyle Farm in Mount Pleasant. And we were out visiting a partner today out that way and walked into Whataburger in Mount Pleasant. And they have an entire, I don't know if any of you have been in there, but they have pictures on their wall. And so we asked them if they would like to have some pictures of Tough Mudder. And she goes, "Oh, no, we don't need pictures. They're around on that other wall over there." And they have this huge board, and it's nothing but the runners and participants to Tough Mudder that just invaded Mount Pleasant. I think all of the businesses in Mount Pleasant were very, very pleased and overwhelmed sometimes, I think, by this group of people. And we're happy to say they have signed another contract with us, well, actually not with us, but with the Foyle family to come back next year. Another event that is responsible, that the CVB is responsible for bringing to us, is the North Carolina Half Marathon. That's held here every year at the Speedway, and the Mustang Club of America 50th anniversary that's going to be in 2014 in April. So without any further ado on that, I'll turn it over to Michael, who is our marketing guru, and he's going to touch on a few of our successes that we've had thus far.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here because I live and breathe this document for the past 6 months, so it's finally my pleasure to present some interesting findings doing it this way, and that way we can show and validate what we've been doing as an organization. Basically, the document that you have here is a blueprint. It's a blueprint for our success. It's a full-blown 360-degree approach to marketing for the destination, comprised of print, digital, new media, and like I said, what it's doing is it's validating our marketing is working. I'm going to share with you some facts here in relation to some of our website information. Last year, 12 months total, we received 63,000 visits to our website. In 6 months, we're currently at 71,000. So what that means is through our search engine optimization, our digital banner campaign, everything that we do digitally is working for us. So we're excited to share that information with you. Going into a little bit further details, our destination guide is one of our primary tools that we use to feature the destination. We're currently on pace to distribute over 120,000 copies of that. We distribute that in all our hotel partners, restaurants, local attractions. In addition to the hard copies, we've had over 3,000 people download the digital version, which is pretty impressive. We're not ad heavy in the guide itself. It's for the visitor. We're sharing information for them and to them. With that being said, the live ads within the guide are live, meaning people can click on them. So an advertiser who chooses to advertise in our digital version will get feedback as to the number of clicks and whatnot to measure their return on the investment. Our social media, very effective. I'm happy to say that we are only 4th behind Charlotte Motor Speedway, ZMAX, and Concord Mills, and we're also significantly higher than our friends in Charlotte. So I'm pretty happy to report those numbers as well. From a marketing standpoint, everything that we do, we're looking to drive the visitation to Cabarrus County to maximize the impact through hotel stays and visitor spending. And how do we do that? This is our plan. As I mentioned, it's our blueprint for success. I can't say that word.
Yeah, don't try it anymore.
I'm not going to say it
Stop
anymore.
trying to say it.
So with that being said, from a PR standpoint, we've hosted several FAM tours, media writers, local writers, both on a local, regional level. And that's about it.
Yep. And on the screen, you all have this in your packet too, but this is a great visualization about how the visitor benefits our community and how they come in and how it trickles down across the community into different businesses. And I think that's all. We just wanted to give you a quick update and let you look over the marketing plan. And as always, you are welcome to come and visit us at the CVB, and we'd be glad to answer any questions on any given day about what it is we do and what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we plan on doing. And if there's something that you would like us to help you bring here on an association meeting, or whether it's an association or through your work or whatever it is, we'll be glad to help you. Family reunions are huge, so we're just happy to be here.
Commissioners, do you have any questions concerning this? You've got those discount coupons for ice skating?
We do, as well as tickets for the Speedway Christmas.
If you've got some of those discount coupons, I think it'd be nice if we could put them out for employees to use. Do you want to
Sure.
talk about that? That's just an event that's going on.
Sure, yes.
I don't know if everybody knows about that one.
Yep, the NASCAR Racing Experience took over the ice skating rink that was at ZMAX last year, and it's now, they put it in the oval at the go-kart track behind the mall. So they're over there this year and apparently doing very, very well. So lots of fun, very affordable fun for the family if you want to come out, and we'll send some of those over for you.
For
all.
anybody that watches our show, they're $2 off coupons. They can come by the CVB Visitor Center and pick up coupons. If somebody is interested in going, swing by there before you go over and
And I think we're
ice
having a
skate.
merchandise sale. Are we having a merchandise sale? Yeah,
are.
we're going
We
to.
are, yes.
Just come in. We're having a merchandise sale. So,
So I didn't know if y'all knew about that event, but that's, I'm not ice skating, but, you know, one of you guys.
it's fun to
Larry,
watch.
that might be great for you to go. Chris, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the new discount airline. I'm not sure if that's the proper term at the Concord Airport. And have you guys been working with them? Or how is that going to? Can you give me any information on it?
Do that.
Having several discussions with Allegiant. Right now, we are doing our best to promote inbound marketing. They, as an organization, as a low-cost carrier, are all about outbound marketing. So they are attempting to bring the residents of Cabarrus County outside to Orlando. They've been very unhelpful. But we're trying our best to work with them and determine and trying to figure out a way how to attract residents in the Orlando market to Concord. But in short, we've had struggles with Allegiant. We are not a destination that's sunny
Right.
and
I mean, even with the race, you know, you think around times of the race that potentially be able to work with them to bring visitors in.
Well, I will say that we probably won't be working directly with the airline themselves for marketing because it's not in their marketing plan.
Correct.
To move people from Orlando to Cabarrus. Although we see that that is a huge benefit. We don't have to have their assistance in order to
Right.
market those flights.
Correct.
In Orlando. And we're currently looking at the best avenue, talking with a company who actually, what are they?
Adara Marketing.
Yeah, it's Adara Marketing. You can tell me
And what they do is they go out and they specialize in real-time data, and they can determine who is searching for flights in Charlotte, Greensboro. And what we might be able to do is market towards those folks in the Orlando market and trying to steal some traffic away from other airports.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do that on our own, but
Yeah,
it just
I
won't be in
understand.
partnership with them. But
Okay.
yes,
Sounds great.
it's on our radar. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next, section 4, discussion items for action at our December 16th meeting. So we're going to start with Cabarrus County Schools again. And Lynn Shue is here. Sorry, Lynn, I didn't recognize you to begin with. I don't know if you want to come up and sit with them or not. Oh, and Jason Van Hookelen is here also. Jason, if you need to come up, you're welcome to join him. And we're going to talk about reallocation requests and related budget amendments.
All right, good afternoon. With the deadline for QSCB funding expiring soon, we knew it was important to us and important to you that we make sure that all the funds that were in the balance remaining column have a plan. So as you see, there are no funds in the balance remaining columns. So with this budget amendment, we have a plan for all of the remaining funds. If you look at the requested budget amendment column, oh, sorry, I'm at the previous document. What we're doing is we're asking to remove the funds, the remaining funds. There were 2 projects that had funds remaining. One was the Central Cabarrus windows and doors, had $8,501 remaining in that project. And the other project was the breaker panels, had $5,334 remaining in that line item. We'd like to take those unallocated dollars and place $2,943 in the Northwest Gym Edition, and we would like to place $10,892 into the Mount Pleasant High boilers project to finish those projects out. And that would obligate all of the funds on the QSCB.
Okay, questions? Jason?
I just had one question. I was not here when we talked about the Northwest Cabarrus Gym. It shows that the budget amount for that is $3,549,000. Is that just for the renovation of the gym there?
3 million, where do you see that number?
I'm glad that I asked this question because I may just be wrong.
Okay.
But on revised budget on page 20, it shows building and renovation gym, Northwest High School, $3,549,064 on page 20, right there.
I believe you guys allocate a lump some of your projects in together, whereas we keep all ours very separate. So anything that deals with Northwest is probably in your number.
Okay.
Whereas if you look at this, the document that we get from Cabarrus County Schools, the one specific to the gym would be 2.887 specifically for the gym. You can also see that right above there's a chiller. That may have that's maybe where that 3 million number comes from. I believe you guys capture yours a little bit different than we do.
I appreciate you clarifying that for me. Thank you.
What's the $9,000 going to be used for?
The 9,000, is it the 10,000 for the boilers? Which one are we talking
I
about?
thought you said $9,000 going to Northwest Gym.
$2,943 for the Northwest Gym. Is that the one?
I thought you said out of that total 9,000 was going to the Northwest Gym. Maybe I misunderstood you.
No, sir. It's $2,943. It'll help with the paving that we had.
On the parking lot.
Yeah, the parking lot. Mhm.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions? Okay. Okay, I think that's the only thing we have for y'all tonight, so you can go to your meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next we've got Dennis Testerman. There you are, Dennis. Soil and Water Conservation District for a grant application. Vicki, you gonna join? Okay.
Good afternoon. So we are requesting permission to submit a grant to the North Carolina Foundation for Soil and Water Conservation, grant for additional equipment, field monitoring equipment, to be used with our emerging conservation field school at Clark Creek. This is part of the larger grant. For those of you that would remember, we got a grant from the Clean Water Management Trust Fund several years ago, and we've been doing mitigation and restoration work behind Cox Mill Elementary School. The district owns property upstream of the school property, and we are currently in the process of installing a floating sectional observation platform there that was funded out of that grant. And this grant to the Foundation for Soil and Water Conservation is for, again, for equipment for students to use in monitoring the water quality in Clark Creek, which is a stream that's currently listed as being impaired for water quality. We previously received a grant from the foundation, and we're unable to spend that grant. It was tied to a school campus, and there were changes going on that campus, and the setting for that particular outdoor classroom component was no longer possible. We had to return that grant, so we're just coming back around now that we, I think, have something that's a little bit more concrete that will work.
Commissioners, any questions on this one? You're requesting, your grant amount's $2,500, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's their max, and we went for that.
Okay. Any questions about this? So the students at Cox Mill Elementary School would be the ones using it in part of their science curriculum, or?
We've got some logistics to work out in terms of buses getting there and dropping off kids, but we really envision this as something that would work for all of the public and private schools in Cabarrus County. And Mecklenburg is just on the other side of Clark Creek. In the conversations that we've had with residents in Highland Creek, we've promoted everything that we've been doing out there for not only the Cabarrus students that go to those schools, but the students on the Mecklenburg side as well. So maybe some regional potential.
And it's difficult for students to have that opportunity to be able to have hands-on until they, of course, get to upper grade levels. But it's a good opportunity for them to be able to be on the ground and actually see what they're learning in the classroom.
I would just interject, too, since you all recognize Ned Hudson at one of your recent meetings for being selected as Supervisor of the Year. One of the things that earned Ned that award is serving on the foundation board. He was he's their past vice chair and currently is serving on their endowment committee. So we're maybe standing to reap some of the benefits of his hard work on that foundation board.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. Next item is also with Dennis, authorization to submit an application to purchase agricultural conservation easement.
And I'm inviting Mike Barrier, farmer out in the Mount Pleasant area, to join us. The land that we are wanting to put under a conservation easement is owned by Mike. Actually, this particular tract is the one where Mike lives. This application is one that I would say back in October, we came to you and asked for authorization to prepare grant applications, and so this is the one that we're bringing to you for state funds. This is an application that we previously submitted. They're very short on funds, and this application didn't make the cut the last time, so basically we're just resubmitting the same application. We would be looking at putting an easement, a permanent agricultural conservation easement on 35.52 acres of farmland, and we are asking from the state Department of Ag and Consumer Sciences, their Ag Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. We're asking them $44,000 as part of the total package that we would use to purchase these the development rights that would lead up to putting the conservation easement on that land. And then we would in turn seek a federal grant if this grant is successful to get additional matching funds for that.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions on this one? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, the next thing that we have is the Salisbury-Rowan Community Action Agency. They are required to come and present to us. We are not, are they here? No, I don't think he's, okay, well, they're not here, so we will talk with them. They may have been planning to come to the regular meeting in 2 weeks. There's no funding involved in that. Literally, what they have to do is present it to us. And then we acknowledge that they presented it to us. But they are required to present it to us because it comes into Cabarrus County. So we will get in touch with them and make sure they're here in 2 weeks to do the presentation then. Next, Londa Strong, Active Living in Parks.
Good afternoon. The fee and charge policy for this year, we just for some clarification, we do not put the fee and charge policy with our budget because the budget year falling in the middle of the year, a lot of programs, a lot of activities, the pool, things like that are already in progress. So 5 or 6 years ago, we changed it to January 1st so that we could be a little bit more consistent with some of the programs that were going on. So we take it to our park commission, and then this year we also took it to the Senior Center Advisory Council, excuse me, to get their recommendations and approvals, and we've been working on it for a couple of months. So what you have before you are the recommended changes. Most of it, there's a lot of red in there, if you saw it, but most of it, clarifications or the addition of the senior center facilities, because it did just address parks. And we didn't add the parks in last year simply because it was part of the budget. So we let those fees go for a year and a half without review. That way we could get in sync and have everything started for January 1 of this year. I don't know how you want to review this, if you want to go line by line, if you want me to ask if there are any specific questions, but the majority of it are clarifications, the addition of senior centers. There are a few recommended increases on shelter rentals. So I'll be glad to address it however you want, if you want to go page by page, or if you want to go on the sheet that we have that addresses the specific changes, whatever makes it easier for you. I don't want to take up your time if you don't have questions about it.
Let's see, I mean, I read through it, I presume everybody else did. Do you have specific questions on any of the proposed changes? A lot of it is some verbiage just to get everything in line. As you said, there are a few different prices in there. Steve, do you have questions?
With the Parks Commission, was that unanimous? They
Yes.
unanimously agree to this?
Yes.
No.
Parks Commission and Senior Center Advisory Council
Yeah.
both. And we had committees on each to review them before it went to the board or the commission.
Right.
Or the council or the commission.
Great, thank you.
And Larry, I think you're the representative for that board. Do you?
It was well discussed between both groups, so there's no changes to be made to it.
There you go. Anybody else? Chris, do you have any questions? Jason? Okay.
I will just ask, will this take effect whenever we pass this at the next meeting? Will it take effect immediately, or will it be with next budget?
January 1.
January, okay, January calendar.
Yes, except there is one notation in there for the school projects, the programs that we have, that won't go into effect until the 2015, because they already have their budget set up based on the fees that we had, and there was like a $1 increase. So when that adds up with the number of school kids that we use, so we would just let that run through, and they'll have that fee for a year and a half, and then we can add them in.
So for the calendar year, the increase in fees, how much is that going to generate, would you say, for the calendar?
Roughly, anywhere from $2,000 or $3,000 is all that you're looking at for the course of the year, for the calendar year.
Correct. Okay. And what will that money be used for?
It goes straight into revenues.
Okay.
We budget the revenues, and that helps offset our expenditures.
Okay.
We budgeted around $45,000 last year for shelter rentals, so we might be able to hit 50 this year.
Okay.
You never really know. It depends on how much rain you get, too.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And for the general public to be able to know what these changes are going to be, how do you publicize that, or how does somebody find out that cornhole equipment rental is $5?
Well,
how does somebody find that out?
It'll be updated on our website once it is approved by the commissioners. And then also when people call in to make a reservation or ask questions about whatever it is, we freely give that information out so that they have access as to where to go. And through our reserve partner, the software that we have, it's all listed there as well. So there's several ways they can find out, or they can just call.
Do you, at the senior centers, or at the different places, because this covers a lot of different areas, but like at the senior center, do you have available, maybe a notebook or something that somebody could come in there and look to see what their options are that might not go on the internet?
We do not have one out available just for the public to come in, but if they come in and ask for one, we'll always give it to them. That's not a problem.
Okay.
We have a couple copies laying around.
Okay, that's always good to have, so. Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, thank you very much. Next, EMS, Alan Thompson.
Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. In our FY 2014 budget, we had $426,000 approved for the purchase of 3 ambulances. We have a very disciplined replacement policy on ambulances to make sure that we field the most reliable resources for emergency response. As part of our practice to make sure that we're good stewards of the funds allocated related to ambulance purchases, we have historically used a process known as a piggyback bid purchase. What we're here to present tonight and request your approval for the consent agenda placement is to use a bid request, a piggyback bid request that was obtained from Algiers County, Michigan, in the amount necessary to purchase these 3 ambulances that we're slated to replace in December or January of this year. And that's pretty much it. The decision to replace the ambulances we make in conjunction with the County Service Garage. Jimmy Lentz, our Assistant Director, handles our vehicle maintenance scheduling, tracks the hours, tracks the mileage, tracks utilization and cost associated with repairs. In speaking with Dennis Furr at the County Garage and with Jimmy Lentz, we have identified the 3 ambulances that need to be replaced. By using a piggyback process, we're able to get a good product at a reduced cost, resulting in pretty substantial cost savings to get these ambulances on the road.
Okay, for an ambulance, how many miles do you put on an ambulance or usage, or how do you determine that that's the one that needs to be replaced?
Our current average mileage per unit yearly is around 27,900 miles. When we make that determination for replacement, one, we use the county vehicle maintenance policy that identifies the mileage replacement for ambulances at 100,000 miles for frontline units. And then we also take into consideration maintenance cost. For example, we have one that is slated to come off this year that is a slightly newer model than one of the units that we will be maintaining, but the maintenance cost has risen to a point that is no longer financially feasible to keep that unit on the road. And that's where those conversations with the maintenance garage and Jimmy come into play.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Chris?
Yeah, I just was going to ask, I know most of our county vehicles, we do the piggyback purchase. I've never heard of one being so far away as Michigan. Do our ambulances delivered here locally even though we piggybacked on purchases from there, or are they delivered there and we have to go retrieve them? How does that work?
They are still delivered locally.
Okay.
Ambulances are kind of a unique animal, just to be honest. I think last year or in the spring actually, the last 3 we replaced, it was piggybacked from Elmore County, I believe Indiana.
Oh, okay.
So it's not unusual for us to be out of state or, a distance away to obtain those piggyback options.
Okay. Well, that's why I just want to make sure we didn't have to
Yes, sir.
drive to Michigan to pick them up.
We're still buying and we're still purchasing the same type of ambulances from the manufacturer.
Right.
We're just piggybacking on a bid that another community.
Right, I understand.
Yeah,
I
so-
just didn't know with it being a package on that, if the ambulances were delivered in one location,
Sure.
or if it could be.
Right, no, it's
Yeah.
the exact same as it has been.
Right,
Our
okay.
ambulances are actually purchased out of West Jefferson.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I had one question for you, gentlemen. It looks like your ambulances cost something about $140,000. Is that about right?
Yes, sir.
137.5 is the current bid for each.
So they, at 27,900 miles a year, they last about 3 to 4 years. Is that what you're getting out of them?
We shoot for around 4 years frontline.
Yeah.
And typically around the 100,000 mile mark for frontline. Then we keep them in reserve for approximately 2 years later which is in the 20 to 30,000 mile range in the reserve status as a backup fleet, more or less. So we're looking at a 4 to 5 year ambulance life.
And you probably don't need all of your ambulances in reserve, right? Or do you keep them all in reserve?
We keep 4. Our fleet is 15 ambulances. We staff 11 daily, and we have 4 reserve units.
My only question on these was, if you get about 4 to 6 years on them, you're looking at between maybe $35,000 a year in terms of acquisition cost, maybe down to $25,000 a year. Would we spend that much on maintenance on these? I mean, the goal is to make it so that we're not spending so much on maintenance that it doesn't make the... if you spend too much on maintenance, you just end up putting it into a vehicle that that's not worth it. But at $25,000 a year, on average, our cost to buy these, it seems like we could maintain them for a little bit longer and still make some money on it. And I was just curious what your numbers had found, because I'm sure you had studied it, and that was something that interested me.
There's a couple issues at stake here. One is we do abide by the county fleet maintenance policy. That's one thing that we have been consistent with doing. A lot of conversations have occurred with our fleet maintenance supervisor to make sure that we have a reliable product. It's not like a staff vehicle. If we have a failure of an emergency vehicle en route to a call, there's a substantial amount of liability that will be incurred if we have that failure. And those are instances that we do have to report to the North Carolina Office of EMS if we have a failure while we're responding to an emergency call. Pretty much an industry standard with emergency medical response is that 100,000 mile range, and that's what we're trying to do. We have in the past been to a point, and I've been here since 1990, and Jimmy's been here since 1990, we have run ambulances 175,000 miles before. The outcome of that was not beneficial to the county. We had a lot of failures, had a lot of critical failures. And again, it's not like a passenger car failure. When we have a failure of an ambulance, it means somebody's life's at stake. So that's why we, as a profession, and also a lot of discussions with the commissioners, have reached a point of saying what we feel is an acceptable risk is 100,000 miles frontline and 125 to 130,000 miles under reserve status, a unit that's not used each day.
I guess, just for your benefit, Commissioner Osterreich, Jimmy, can you talk a little bit about, it's not just miles driven, it's hours used and the other systems that are running as well that you're right. Monitoring as well?
And actually it's a recommendation from General Motors, and Ford coincides right with that too, which we're 100% General Motors now on the ambulance fleet. But they recommend a truer estimate of wear on the unit be off an hour meter, which our newer ambulance, we've only got one in the fleet right now that doesn't have the hour meter because we spend so much time sitting on a scene idling. So the mileage, when the wheels aren't turning, is really not an accurate wear indicator. And they estimated at 33 miles per hour on the engine. It's just approximation that they go by for GM. So looking at that with one of the trucks we've got with 133,000 miles on it, it's right at 6,000 engine hours. So you're getting, I mean, you're increasing your mileage to do it that way upwards to 200,000. And it's a more accurate wear indicator than looking at the odometer.
I appreciate you both explaining that to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Well, have a great evening.
You too. Next, we have Debbie Brannan and Todd. Todd, here, are you going up or just Debbie? Okay, Debbie Brannan. And a local agreement to provide Acela automation software hosting and licensing to the City of Concord. Welcome.
You've said it all. Good evening. The Acela software is the planning and development software that we currently use, and it's been in use since 2007, 2008. And a joint project with the City of Concord we've been working on would allow the City of Concord to use our infrastructure and purchase licensing and use the infrastructure that we already have in place. But in order to for Acela to give us permission for them to use these licenses, we have to execute an interlocal agreement. The budget, this year's budget does include revenues and expenses, which is essentially a wash for the purchase of the licensing and the maintenance of the license. The City of Concord will reimburse us for that, and that's included in the interlocal agreement. We also will be receiving some revenue from the City of Concord for the services we provide with the hosting services for Excella. I believe there's one or two items I think that Mr. Cook still needs to work out, but with the City of Concord, just some logistics in the interlocal. But
that's correct. Actually, there will be two agreements. One is this interlocal agreement with Concord that is along the lines of what Ms. Brannan has said, that there'll be some revenue that will accrue to the county from administering this relationship essentially between Excella and the City of Concord. And then Concord will also completely reimburse the county for the licensing that needs to take place. There will also be an amendment to the existing agreement between Excella and the county that allows for this additional licensing because our original agreement with them prohibits there being any other usage of this software system outside of the county. So that document is not before you, but it's a pretty standard amendment and just acknowledges that there will be this licensing with the licensing itself technically is actually between the City of Concord and Excella. They'll have their own agreement, but it does require an amendment to our agreement to actually allow it under their proprietary rights. And as far as the interlocal is concerned, there are a few changes that need to be made to it, but none of them are significant. The basic business deal is what you see in the document that's in front of you.
Jonathan, can you explain what are we doing here? It's, I mean, the agenda item right now is a contract, but what is this? What is, once we get this in place, what are the benefits to us in the city and really the public as well? And it's in response to comments from builders, contractors, our community, our Sustainable Local Economy Commission, and it's if you can just talk a little bit about what is the process.
And I'm sure Ms. Brandon's going to want to add to this, but it is a customer service relationship too. That so, for instance, if you want to open a business in the City of Concord and you're building a new building, then you have zoning regulations that you're going to meet through the City of Concord, and ultimately building regulations that are enforced by Cabarrus County. So you're going to be getting a permit and plan review through Concord, and then the same thing through the county. This all becomes electronic. So when you're submitting to the City of Concord, the information they take in with that plan review is then transferable, because it's in the same Excella software, is transferable to the county, and really gives you more of a single submission process. So it makes it a lot easier on that person who's wants to open that business, who's developing, who's constructing that building, to go through that permitting process. At this point, we do a lot of our permits, for instance, electrical, plumbing, a lot of our simpler permits online, but this moves us more towards the ability to do any number of permits online, whereby being able to obtain your zoning approval through the City of Concord and the approval of the occupancy through the City of Concord, then that's going to open up other permits that we'll be able to issue online without them having to come in at all and be present. And the other piece of that, and maybe Debbie, you could talk about this part, is ultimately moving towards an electronic plan submission.
I think the largest benefit is the workflow, because there is a back and forth between the city and the county for the customer when they submit, and I don't know all the zoning processes, but you know, there has to be approval at the city level, and then it has to be approval at the county level, and back and forth. This way, the city and county staff can both see where we are in the process, so if the customer comes to the county, you know, we'll be able to see, oh, we're still waiting on the city, and we'll still be able to help them along the process, instead of saying, you know, I don't know where it is, you're going to have to go see the city. So from a customer service standpoint, that'll be a great benefit.
Yeah, I didn't mean to minimize this process here. I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood what's going on here, and this is something we've been moving towards for several years now. I think it's going to be a wonderful addition to Jonathan and I and Kelly and a couple of the others at the city. We're the ones that come up with we tell them what we want to do, and Debbie and Todd take it and run with it and make it happen. So we want to make sure, and this is making it happen right here. So.
Is there thought about this is just between us and the city of Concord. Is there thought about including the city of Kannapolis at some point?
Well, we actually do work with Harrisburg right now. Harrisburg joined us when we initially implemented the software and said that they wanted to get on board. So it's baby steps. I think if we're successful with Concord, then the other municipalities may want to also.
Because it would seem that if this is a good thing for Harrisburg and Concord, it would be a good thing for the other one, so that we should open that dialogue. And so, Rich, am I understanding then, this item will have two different agreements, or there'll be two parts to this in 2 weeks when we approve?
I would say yes. In that other document they just sent to us just right before Thanksgiving, we probably ought to add that to the agenda and put it on with this and approve them both at the same time, because they do relate to each other. And actually, the amendment to our underlying contract with Excella is what would allow this interlocal agreement to be implemented.
Okay. That would make sense to me from what you said, that we need both of them as part of this item. So, Commissioners, other questions that you have?
This is before the city council in December as well, so we're trying to both work through this in the month of December.
Ms. Brannan, I was looking at Section 2, and it said the annual cost for managed services payable to the county is $11,299. And it said annual maintenance costs are based on actual Excella charges. Mr. Cook had said that the county would receive a little bit of extra revenue. Where is that located in the document?
That is the extra revenue there, the $11,000. And we're basing that on market value. That was what Excella would have charged the city of Concord had they hosted them.
Okay, so we're receiving, that is not a charge that we will incur, that we're passing through. That is a charge they would have incurred that we are now collecting for our services and hosting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, now Todd Shanley. And I think Derek Heath and Ben Rose, I think, are you going to join, or?
Yeah.
However you guys need to. Child Protective Services Mobile Solution Request. Welcome.
Thank you. Today we're here for you talking about another partnership more within the county than externally, as I'm usually talking to you about. But the partnership is between ITS and DHS. Hard to break the habit of saying DSS, so excuse me. What we're talking about today is fielding iPads into this Child Protective Services division using Compass Copilot. That application is part of the Northwood Suite, which we've been using since approximately 2007, 2008 budget years when we implemented that. So this will enhance the ability for the CPS workers, and I'm going to let Derek talk about that in a second, but a lot of the technology pieces will fall on my staff to implement. I'm just going to call out the elephant in the room on this is the professional services piece. It is a sizable piece of this project, and due to the fact that the technology is very new and being able to implement it and to be very successful with the 19 CPS workers that we're going to work with, we feel that it's important to utilize Northwood staff to help us implement that rather than just trying to do it internally. The ITS staff has a lot of projects on their plate, and to be able to make sure this project's successful with the $38,000 we're going to invest in the software, we want to make sure Derek and his team are well supported. I'll let Derek talk a little bit about what this will mean to his team and how that'll improve their services to our community.
Good evening. As the program manager for Child Protective Services here in Cabarrus County, this is a project we've been talking about almost for a year and a half, and protecting my most vulnerable of the community, which is our children. Speaking for my supervisors and my frontline staff, my investigators, it would improve what they do in the field daily. By having these iPads, be able to attach a case directly to a document, taking pictures of actual abuse, neglect right then and there to time and date stamp these actual events where we have a dirty home or, like I said, some abuse or neglect issues concerning marks or bruises on the child. Those pictures can be taken in the field and be sent back to the supervisor right then and there. The investigator can document their actual conversation with the parents and the child right there on the scene. Because, you know, the state law says that we have 7 days to update our cases, but with this technology, we can do it right then and there, which can save those 7 days. You see it all the time on the news where, you know, children are abused, neglected, and sometimes the workers are at fault for not documenting. This will help the documentation purposes with this program using the iPads. One of the biggest things that Todd and I were speaking about was the actual scanning of these documents into the system, where if it's automated, it's automatically saved into the system, which creates less paper, which we have file rooms that are overflowing right now with these files. This will eliminate the files in the file room and actually be all in the system. It will help tremendously with our own call purposes because we're 24/7. So if we get a call late in the night and we find out that a family has history, we can look in the system and see that there's documentation that helps us make a decision for our safety for the child. So there's just many aspects of this program that we're looking forward to for the workers. Was make us more efficient. You know, going back to the scanning piece, where it actually saves the work into the system, like I said, eliminates hours which workers spend at a desk scanning these files inside of Compass Pilot, where if it's saved into this new system, it takes away hours of doing that. So, you know, that's pretty much in a nutshell how it would greatly make us more efficient out there in the field as far as investigations and protecting our children.
All right. Commissioners, questions that you have on this item?
The hardware and software, I'm assuming this would be like an iPad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so is that what would be included in the hardware, I'm assuming? How many units would that be?
It's 19 units. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a pilot project for us. The goal eventually to be the rest of the Child Welfare Division. This is just Child Protective Services, the 19 investigators.
Yes.
So that would cover the 19 individuals that are working in that, you know.
Yes, in investigations. Yes, sir.
Is there a product, Derek, that, because what I find, I was talking to, I mentioned this to Todd earlier, I had asked him about this, but we end up having to replace computers, and then now we're adding tablets onto it, and they really don't, a tablet does not replace a computer, so as we go forward, we're going to have to buy 2 every time. Is there a product, or could we wait, 6 months? My dad got a new laptop, and you can flip it over, and it's tablet included and things like that. Is there a product that we could buy one of them and maybe spend $100 or $150 more and get both of those things at once, so that we are not constantly buying 2 things and go forward that way? Because I don't know that you get all that much functionality out of the tablet that you get out of your computer, and so we're going to end up duplicating a lot of our expense on our technology on that side. So I have that question.
So from that standpoint, we did look at laptops as an application. Android was the first iteration of this application. We didn't feel comfortable moving forward at that time with the Android because of some of the things that you talk about. That there were too many changes too fast. We did wait till the iOS iPad version was available to bring this to you. The difference between what I can do on a Windows-based application versus a iOS platform, yes, I can't say that that's not going to be available. I can tell you that it's not available today, and it's not something they're currently working on, just because I think Windows, my opinion is they were a latecomer to the game, to the tablet market, and we're just seeing that now. Derek would have to tell you how much they can actually do from what they'll need their desktops for. From our experience, what we're moving towards in our environment is a thin desktop, so that we're not buying full PCs anymore either. So we are trying to reduce costs in that area, so that if they need to, they can access their desktop from their iPad. So we are leveraging some things to I guess close that gap. But yeah, to be honest, I can't tell you that there is something out there. The other part of this is we have a very significant investment with the Northwoods application, and this is the this is layered on top of that. So that's really why this piece is key, that we can't go externally and find another source.
And my second question is that DHS was just brought under the county fold in July, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. What would you think about waiting until the budget process to look at this, and then we could really get a good analysis of sort of what all the expenses are across the division, and really make a decision at that point? Would that be acceptable to you?
I mean, I think it's, more of a right now thing for me, because like I said, I've been pushing this for a year along with Todd. I understand what you're saying about waiting and, to see what's happening, but this would tremendously help my workers in the field. And going back to your first original question was, having these iPads in the field, to have it automated versus the laptops or new software coming out, it helps the worker be more efficient in the field and make on-the-spot decisions along with the supervisor, as well as myself as the program manager, because some cases come to my level. They're very severe. So me to be able to see it, sit back to my computer, me sitting at my desk with them being in the field, just helps it out tremendously. So that's my whole point and push for this project, is the efficiency. And, like I said, it just protects our most vulnerable, which is our children. So that's my aspect on that.
I have one more question for you on this contract. Hardware and software, is that, what are going to be our recurring costs on that contract?
$7,600 is what is the recurring piece of that. It's that is the software maintenance on that piece. Yeah, as I said earlier, the big piece is really the professional services, and I think attached to your item here, it goes through. They submitted a full work plan for us. We asked for a full project plan to break down each step. When we start talking about that statement of work that Megan's pulling up there, it does go through each of the items of making sure this is a successful deployment, working with the staff, providing actual ride-alongs with the staff, not just in classroom training. It is an experienced consultant coming out and making that transition. Unfortunately, Derek's staff hasn't had any technology in their offices, up to now. They have what are the devices that you guys use?
Alpha Smarts.
Alpha Smarts. Mm-hmm. I call them smart calculators. They're really it's really sad that, from a technology standpoint, the device that they're using out in the field to try to record what they're doing and coming back in the office and trying to sync that up. So I think the hours and the time that they spend doing that have been. We've overlooked the technology in the CPS division, so this is really going to address a lot of that. There was one other point I was going to make to you. So what was your question before that? Yeah, there was Derek had answered just before.
Whether we could address this in the budget process.
So the thing that we'd like to be able to do with this is deploy this for the entire child welfare division. So this would be the pilot group. So ideally, we'd be addressing the rest of the division in the budget process, and that's why we brought it to you beforehand. If we're successful and able to start moving forward, we'll be able to do that and not spend so much money on the professional services in the next phase, because we'll have qualified staff who've been through the process that we will be able to. There'll obviously be some professional services in that contract, but not to that level, because we'll have trained staff on here as part of DHS to be able to help with that. So the foster care and
case planning, case management.
So those are the other groups that we would like to add in the budget process.
What do you think would be the cost of implementing this on a department-wide basis?
It's approximately $2,000 an individual, so another 40 people, so approximately $80,000. And I would say probably another 10 in professional services to just get the install. So a round number would be 90.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, so these would all be one-time funds, and then you would address the other issues that you just mentioned and the continuing amount in the budget process.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Kelly Sifford. 2012 CDBG Scattered Site Housing Rehab Grant closeout.
Thank you. We are looking to close out this grant, and we are required, as part of the grant, to hold a public hearing at the end. We expended $255,290. We completed 5 urgent repairs and 4 full rehab jobs. 8 of the households were elderly, 1 was disabled. Got my numbers? Yeah. 5 of them were less than 30% of median income households, and 4 were 30 to 50% of the median income. Are there any questions about the grant?
Okay, so at our meeting, we'll hold a public hearing, and then, is that the only thing we have to do? Is the public
Hold the
hearing?
public hearing, and then I'll have the document up there for you to sign after that meeting, and we'll send it off and get the grant closed.
Okay. Questions, commissioners? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Chief Deputy Hunt. This concerns duty weapons.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see y'all. Based on county ordinance, anything surplus over $30,000 needs to come before the board. We have an opportunity at this time to surplus 140 of our duty weapons and be able to purchase 140 new ones for just $199 per weapon. The cost on the weapons are usually about $599, and they're going to give us $400 for each of the weapons that we turn back into them. It's the manufacturer doing it through Lawman's, who does a state contract for weapons. No county funds will be used. We will be using asset forfeiture for this. This is what purchased the weapons to begin with, and that's what we'll be using to make up the difference here to get these weapons. And hopefully, if we can get the order to them by the end of the year, we can start implementing and start replacing these weapons in time for spring firearms, because per our policy, we have to, by the time we get a new weapon, we have to qualify with it within 30 days. So it should work out pretty good for us to do that.
Any questions?
Sounds good to me.
So how do you literally give the old and get the new? I mean, there obviously you can't send in 140 and nobody have anything. So
Right. We would have to do it in stages to be able to, take weapons, and probably would do it during firearms. We have a spring firearms training. We probably would do it then. With the weapons we're going to replace, we'd probably go ahead and take up the old weapon and give them the new one and let them qualify with it. So it would all pretty much seamless process.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, and it's this, Jason, this is for you.
Yes.
That you sent to us. Hang on one second. And that Commissioners is page 362. You got that in an email earlier today, and it's 362 in your packet.
Megan, what is the best way for me to go through this with you controlling the slides? Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page you were. I had brought a proposal to
Real quick, I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. About how long?
I'd say 20 minutes maybe.
Okay.
I mean, for the
Does
presentation.
anybody want to take a break? That's the reason I'm going to ask. This would be a time to take a break. If everybody's good, we'll keep going. If anybody needs a break. Okay, go ahead.
Let me get this. I had, at the mini retreat, I had put forth a proposal by which we would be able to save all of the money from a borrowing and instead go forward with really funding all of our needs as a county with cash and savings. And at that point, I was asked to provide a little bit more detailed plan. And so in the time since then, I have really done a lot of homework. I have gone to about 15 schools and met with principals and met with teachers. I have spent hours with Dr. Kane and Dr. Shepard. I went line by line through our 139-page budget and did a analysis of 3 years of historic spending trends and things like that, and met with the sheriff for about 3 hours. And through that research and work, I was able to put together this plan, which I think does exactly what I said it would do. The first thing I would like to point out to us is the bottom line there, the blue line, is our federal debt. And that starts in 1995. And the reason I went back 20 years is because we typically borrow money in 20-year increments. So I went back 20 years to see what our debt history looked like. And also, there's really been a tremendous expansion of governmental borrowing in the last 20 years. And I wanted to see if Cabarrus County had followed that trend or had done something different. In 1995, the federal government debt was $4.9 trillion. This year, at this moment, it's about $17 trillion, which means our federal debt has gone up by about 350% in the last 20 years. Now, the bad news is that Cabarrus County has actually grown at twice that rate. In 1995, our debt as a county was $45.26 million, and today it's $347 million. This debt that we're talking about is not the way that it's always been in Cabarrus County, and people can see that this is really a last two-decade issue that we have heaped upon ourselves, and that number really shocks me. You can go to the next one. So people say to me, Jason, well, we've had growth, and how are we going to pay for that growth? Well, the truth of the matter is we could pay for that growth with our tax revenues, because in addition to our record debt, we have had record revenues. In 2004, our ad valorem tax revenue was $65.8 million. Last year, it was $131.1 million, which means ad valorem tax revenue is up 100% in 10 years as well. So people say, I think Commissioner Morris had said that population and inflation are responsible for that growth, but when you actually look at the population and inflation numbers, it shows that if you just population and inflation adjust that number, 65.8 million, it's substantially less than the 131 we are collecting. In a later slide, I'll go through that. So, what is the issue? The issue is that in the last 20 years, we basically, as a government, we decide what we would like without regard to revenues. And the examples are our jail, our Board of Elections building, our Cabarrus Health Alliance, and Winkler Middle School. And as a specific example of that, I note our jail. And I have an article about the Rowan County Jail. They were facing substantially the same issue that we were facing, which was they were under a court order to ease their overcrowding. And they had, this article says that the detention center there is housed at times 300 people. And so what they needed to do was provide beds for another 160 people. And so they decided to build an annex and built the 160-person annex, and that cost them $6 million. We were under the same type of order, and here's our press release about our jail. And it says that Cabarrus County Jail currently books 300 to 325 per day, so we have about the same amount of people per day, except instead of building a facility that was appropriate for that size, we built one that was for 665 people. And instead of spending $6 million on a jail annex, we spent $118 million, which means we spent 25 times more on our jail than they spent on theirs. That is an example of deciding what we would like to do without regard to how much money that we have, and then doing that. What ends up happening is this requires us to raise our taxes and borrow tremendously to fund our desired project. And you can see the result. Cabarrus County currently owes $469 million in principal and interest, and our tax rate in the last 10 years has gone up by 25%. So this is my plan for implementing responsible governing. It's just the same as you would do in your house, which is live within our means. People tell me all the time, Jason, I wish government would live within their means, and this is our plan for how to do that. So what we need to do is determine the amount of revenues that we have and prioritize our real needs with appropriate amenities, and then we can fund all of our appropriate projects. The result of this will be to stop the recent trend of skyrocketing debt, stop the recent trend of skyrocketing tax rate increases, and in the process we'll be able to retire existing debt service and reallocate over $100 million in debt service payments to necessary projects. Now, I have three very strong priorities in moving forward, and I think all the other commissioners would be interested in these. I would like to reduce our skyrocketing debt. I want to immediately fund new schools and provide funds for maintenance of existing schools. And I want to create jobs and stop abuse of taxpayers by partially reversing the tax rate increase. So this plan, I had to compromise a little bit from the first plan that I did because in meeting with the principals and the school board and the Dr. Shepard, they told me that basically they could not incur any operational cuts, that they were, that operational cuts would be very difficult for the schools to accept. And this plan was a way for us to help the school board and not hurt the school board. And so I looked at that and I said, I think there's a way that we can move forward and still meet our priorities. We may not be able to reverse the tax increase 100%, but I think we can accomplish the goal of paying some respect to our taxpayers and also using our tax rate to create jobs. And so basically my plan is to use all available capital that we have saved, not including the county reserve, to immediately start building and maintaining our schools. Let's do it next year. We don't have to wait for a bond. We have approximately $35 million that we have in savings that if we move a couple things around, we have $35 million. I would like to reduce our expenditures by $13.3 million from our current budget expenses. $7 million of that $13.3 million would go into a yearly capital construction fund, and $6.3 million would be used to reverse the tax rate increase by 50% and bring it down so that it would only be a 3.5-cent tax rate increase. The final piece is to use the debt service payment money saved from retired debt to fund school and county construction priorities. Fixing the schools is my #1 priority, and I will commit to implementing this plan that not $1 will be cut from the school system. Now the problem with going forward in terms of constructing schools was it was very difficult to figure out what a school costs. The Board of Education has given us very little direction. For instance, for Mount Pleasant Middle School, they asked us for $34 million and then for $31 million. But if you look, this is the actual cost. I called the North Carolina State Department of Instruction, and they provided me with the actual costs of what it costs for them to build schools. So if you look at the top line, you have Winkler Middle School. It costs $18.9 million to build a school for 1,200 students. This is the Cabarrus County Board of Education's capacity report. And if you look here at what their expectations are for middle school, Mount Pleasant Middle School currently has 670 students. And if you go out all the way to 2022, 2023, the end of their study, they have 675 students. So there's no need for a school of 1,200 students. Probably an appropriate need is 700 students. And so if you think it cost $18.9 million to build a school for 1,200 students a few years ago, it seems preposterous that it would cost $31 million to build a school for 700 students now. And I'd also like to point out that the school board will say that some costs are not included in that, such as land. For each of the 4 schools that we will build in the next 4 years, we already have money budgeted for the land, already in our budget, or we already have the land. For instance, Mount Pleasant Middle School, we have the land. Royal Oaks is a replacement. And the Kannapolis Middle School, they already have the land for that as well. So there will be no more land costs other than what we already have budgeted to increase those numbers. Because it was so difficult to come up with an accurate cost of building schools, I went back through their history and I looked at what they actually spent on their schools for 10 years. I took an average of that, and then I inflation adjusted that average. And you'll find that for elementary school, they spent inflation adjusted number $14,500. Middle school, $16,900, and high school, $25,227. So if you use those numbers, they're building their new elementary schools at 1,000 students, so that's almost $15 million for a new elementary school. To replace Mount Pleasant Middle School is 700 students. That's $11.85 million. I'd also like to point out on that middle school, both Winkler had a full auditorium built, and there was a meeting that Commissioner Poole and I were at where we were talking to Lynn Whitkey about what the cost of that auditorium was, and that was $2 million auditorium at a middle school. That middle school was built on the KOCH mill model, which means they put high school quality amenities in a middle school, and so even at that average of what they actually built, this school would have sufficient funds because I haven't made any reduction for those type of things. Replacement of Royal Oaks. Royal Oaks right now has 300, I'm sorry. Royal Oaks right now has 352 students, and at 2023 they expect to be at 411 students. Lynn Shue said at one of their meetings that Weinkauf Elementary would be this would be a great place to ease some of that Weinkauf population as well. So Weinkauf currently has capacity of 880. They have 843 students, and that will grow to 925. So they will be 45 over. So the 411 plus 45 is 456. So I accounted for that with 550 students at Royal Oaks, which gives them growth capacity of 94 students. And at that capacity, 8,026,000 would be sufficient. And then Annapolis Middle School is 1,100 students. Now, specifically, what I am concerned on the Royal Oaks, their proposal has that a replacement school at 1,000 students. What I'm very concerned about is a situation like Bethel Elementary. We went back and replaced Bethel. And Bethel was built to a capacity of 1,034 students. They have 601 students right now, and in 2022, 2023, they expect to have 660 students, which means that 10 years from now, they will still have a capacity of almost 500 extra students that we've just built and maintained and is sitting empty. So this slide right here, we saw what it would cost to build these schools, and the question is, do we have the funds to meet the needs to build these schools? And the answer is we absolutely have the funds, and this is where we're going to see it. So the line across the top is our current debt service payment. You look at 2014, it's $42.3 million. As you look down through 2025, you can see how much that reduces. So by 2025, we have a $19.36 million reduction. And really, even 3 years into this plan, you start to see, or 4 years, you start to see $4 million coming off, almost $7 million in year 5. So if you take those retired debt service payments and you add them to the $7 million construction fund that we created, you will end up with a tremendous amount of money that you can build with every year, finishing 2025 with $26.36 million. But you'll see in the first year you'd have $42 million, and that'll go a long way, take us out to 2018 probably, and then we start getting really the big money, $10.95 million, $13.9, $15.53. That's enough to build a school every year. Now, in contrast, if we borrow the $100 million that the school board would like us to borrow, and some of the commissioners have talked about borrowing, our debt service payment is going to go up by over 20%. In 2017, our debt service payment is going to be over $49 million. So instead of seeing these reductions where we're going to get money to build, our debt service is going to go up, and we are going to lose the ability to build things. So this is a proposed construction plan, and you'll probably not be able to see it very well on television, but essentially what this looks like is taking those funds out and then charting our expenses to show you how the funds that we will create from this plan will pay for every single need we have in the county, and we won't have to borrow a dollar. So if you look across the top line, which is funds available from retired debt plus construction funds, those are those numbers I just showed you, which is the $42 million to start with, and then 2016 is the $7 million plus the retired debt service. Go out to, for instance, 2020, that's the $7 million plus the retired debt service takes you to 15.53. The second row down is funds carried over from the previous year. So we're not going to spend every dollar that we have, so we add that to the funds that we have created that year, which will give us the total amount that we could spend that year. And then and that'll be the third row down. And then we have a project description. And if you look and see the very first thing, something we've been talking about is engineer remodel Central Cabarrus High School. Lynn Shue said that to do that you would need $4, $5, or $6 million, and that would have a tremendous impact. I took the midpoint, which is $5 million, subtracted out the $400,000 that they got for their field, and came up with $4.5 million. You will see that we will start construction of a new elementary school next year. We can start funding all of the roofs and really have the roofs done substantially within 2 years, and we'll have one more left. Every single major priority on the Central Cabarrus School Board list is on this plan. And also, Mike Downs had suggested that perhaps eventually we would need a new courthouse. I think on the list it had it as $52 million. I don't think $52 million is an appropriate amount for that, but in 2023 I did budget $35 million for it. So you've got every single school that they've asked for. And then if you look down in 2019, you can see we can start doing the RCC Advanced Technology Center. 2020, we'll start building more schools because by that time we'll need more, just like we stopped building for 3 years now and we need more. So 2020, 2021, and 2024, I've included money to build more schools. And if you look at the bottom, in the bottom right corner, you'll see that total expense was $170 million for all these projects, and my plan creates $206,596,000, which means we could actually budget $36 million more in capital expenses. I would say that this is only a proposed plan. This is not something that's set in stone. We can tool with it and change the timing, but I think this is a pretty powerful exhibit of how we can fund everything that we need to with cash. And I'll also note that through this plan we'd have 10 schools built, new or remodeled, we can fund everything we need to, and that is proved conclusively right here. So I've proved that we can build what we need to with the money that we have. And so the question is, why do we need to reverse the tax rate increase? And the first answer is job creation. We could reduce the burden on every existing business in Cabarrus County. Tens of thousands of employees working for small business right now, and we could reduce the burden on them. We would allow, really create a tremendous amount of revenue for our small businesses, in that we would directly reduce their expenditures because their taxes would go down, and all of our county residents would have more money to spend, and they would go and spend it at those businesses, which would be great amounts of money for them. We could also attract new business with the tax rate by reversing the tax rate increase. And the second thing that we would do is stop the tax abuse of our citizens. The tax rate has increased over 25% in the last decade. This is a slide that was given to us at our mini retreat, and this really proves exactly what I'm talking about. The number one factor that corporate real estate people look for in determining a new site is the state and local tax scheme. This plan directly impacts the number one factor. As to the abuse of taxpayers, as I had mentioned, in 2004 the total amount we collected in ad valorem tax revenue was $65,795,000. Today it's $131 million. The tax rate, in one of the main driving factors of that is that our tax rate is up 25% over the last decade. If you adjust, this is what I mentioned earlier, if you adjust 2004 collected tax revenue for inflation and population growth, the county should collect approximately $108 million last year. The county actually collected $131 million, which means the county is taking, in apples to apples, inflation adjusted dollars, 21% more today from citizens than in 2004. So how do you get to 13.3 million? The very first thing that I said was, I don't want to cut the schools, and I want to try my hardest to not require major personnel changes. And so, as I mentioned, I really spent a lot of time in the budget, and you can see this is about $5.3 million in reductions that we could make that would have zero impact. We're going to have a $1,049,000 debt reduction. This is the only year that I used the debt reduction to fund the capital construction fund, and the reason for that was because we had about $42 million that we would have in the first year, so I used it here. We have $1.5 million in our budget right now for the elementary school. Either let's have them spend that money, or more likely, let's move it into a capital account so it's out of our budget. We have several contingency fees, and what we had talked about in our meeting with Ann was, Ann Wilson, was creating one $3 million contingency fee, and then taking all of these individual contingency fees out of our budget so that we don't have to budget individually for them when they're not being spent. That $3 million would come out of the unassigned fund balance at the moment and not impact the $35 million that we do have. It's in addition to the $35 million. So we've got non-departmental contingency, legal fees, elections contingency, fuel contingency, legal contingency. I do think that we should not buy motor vehicles next year. I have a friend that's a state trooper, and he said state troopers went to 160,000 miles. And let me be specific. When I say don't buy motor vehicles, I don't mean ambulances or sheriff's deputy vehicles. I mean in our fleet. If the state troopers can drive their state patrol cars to 160,000 miles, I'm sure our county employees could drive theirs something more than what we are. There's another contingency there for the jail. We made a double payment this year for unemployment based on a new state tax policy that was a one-time payment, so that $222,911 will come out. There's a Medicaid assistance contingency. We've got temporary personnel for NC Fast that can come out of the budget, and the RCC capital outlay can come out of the budget, which would take us to $5.351 million coming out. As I mentioned, I did a 3-year analysis of what our actual expenditures were on every single line item, and I found $4.15 million where the budgeted amount for 2014 significantly exceeded the 3-year average. And what this means is we likely either have one-time expenses, or we're slightly over budget on those line items, or it may be an area where we need to look at and say this has gone up a little bit too much. Now, some of that, of course, going to be necessary and they'll be actual, but I think that we could aim to reduce this line item by at least 50%. And to be specific, those are not salary. The things that I included here were not salary. They were not any benefits. They were things like fuel, auto maintenance, minor equipment, et cetera, such as those things. Just minor operating costs, had nothing to do with personnel. Another area that I think that we could recover some savings is our healthcare expenses. Our healthcare expenses as a county have gone up $1.6 million since 2011. And our employees receive their salary, they receive a retirement, they receive a 401k, and they receive 100% health care expense reimbursement if they're a non-smoker and they participate in our health program. I think it's fair to ask them to pay 11%, and that would be about $35 pre-tax per paycheck. I also think that it's fair as if you make more money, then you can pay for your own health insurance to a little bit higher degree, and so there's a range there. This is the hardest part of the plan for me. I don't like to take anything from our employees, and I would say that as a leader, you shouldn't ask something of your employees that you're not willing to do yourself. And so even though we don't get any health insurance at all, I would be willing to reduce my paycheck by $35 a paycheck in order to basically incur the same thing that I'm asking of our employees. Basically, to summarize our expenditures, we had $5.3 million from actual reductions. I identified $4.15 million in potential over budgeted amounts or possible reductions. $1 million in healthcare savings. And I had missed travel, but we spend $400,000 a year on travel. I think that could be reduced some. So without cutting a single person or a single program, we have got almost 70% of the way to $13.3 million. We've got about $4 to $5 million to go, and there was a limited amount to which I could engage in this budget process. The county staff told me, Jason, this is getting to be too time-consuming, and we really can't do much further until budget time comes. So I felt comfortable that leaving $4 to $5 million was an appropriate amount. My goal is to work with the department heads and say, we do not want to have personnel layoffs. Please help us identify areas where we might be able to find some savings if it means that you get to keep all of your employees. And I think that we could find some additional savings. The other thing that I would say is for the last 3 years, we have had double-digit million-dollar surpluses, right? We had $19 million this year, which probably is about $14 million in reality. We had $11 million last year, and I think we had $14 million the year before. There is likely some revenue or some funds that are in this budget that have caused those double-digit million-dollar surpluses that we probably can use as well. Oh, can you flip back one? The current plan is to borrow this first $100 million and then continue borrowing similar amounts every 1 to 3 years to fund capital desires and needs. Our next 10 years cannot look like our previous 10 years. If we borrow this $100 million, we'll get on an irreversible path where our debt service payment grows so large that we cannot build anything without debt, and that's going to drive up our debt and our debt service payment even higher. It will be a never-ending cycle. We must stop the tax rate increase and borrowing cycle. Just like the federal government, this is unsustainable and will lead to disastrous results. But unlike the federal government, we still have one, but only one chance to fix this. And that's all I have.
We will have a retreat in January where we can get more information from staff. Some of these, the staff was already planning on taking out of the budget because they were already one-time expenses. And so this will give them a chance to go back over it and double-check everything. So I don't know if anybody wants to add anything. We've got a retreat planned, I'm sorry, I forgot the date. January 24th and 25th. Friday, we'll start it here. We're going to have it here. Instead of going out there, we're going to have it here. And we'll make the room look a little different than this, a little bit more comfortable for us. We'll start that Friday afternoon, I think 4. We'll start at 4, and then we'll be back Saturday morning and go during the day, and there'll be a lot of discussions. I thought our activity last year where we put our, dots up there on programming to look and see which programming, because we cut some things last year, is a good activity. So we'll work on that, and this will be incorporated into it. So, anybody else want to add anything at this time? Okay. Thank you, Jason. The next thing is the approval of the regular meeting agenda. If you'll look at the one you have at your seat, please. I would like to make a comment. As we all know, Dr. Hector Henry, longtime city councilman for the city of Concord and community member and very productive citizen in Cabarrus County, passed away Thanksgiving. So I would add a moment of silence for that meeting after the invocation. So if you'll look over this, and if there are any changes that anyone would like to make to the agenda other than that.
I think we need to take. I think we need to take item 11 off of the consent agenda because they were not here.
We will move that to G2. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? If not, then I would accept a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda with the noted changes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So moved.
Sorry. Okay, I have a motion to approve them into the regular meeting agenda with changes. There's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. We thankfully do not have need for a closed session tonight. Is there anything else? Motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion to adjourn. Would somebody like to second it?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much to everybody that's been with us tonight, and I will see you in 2 weeks.